Standby like Q's 2 through 33, sound 1A through 7. On deck, standby Q actors. Electrics, kill the blue run lights, please. Like Q 2 and sound 1A. Go.
From Arizona Theater Company, this is Hang in Focus with your host, John Daniels.
As someone that grew up in Arizona, it's a great way for us to share the work that we do worldwide.
And featuring co-host Janelle Bragg.
That is our responsibility, is to reflect what is going on in the world.
Streaming live from the State Theater of Arizona.
Let's do it. Let's really use this moment to re-envision ourselves.
Welcome to Hang in Focus, live with Sean Daniels.
This is the new Arizona Theater Company. I'm just glad that you're here.
On today's show, Sean welcomes playwright and performer Vichet Chum.
Hello, friends. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's go ahead and bring out the always amazing Chanel Bragg. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, I know. I feel like a little schlubby compared to you, all dressed up, looking good. You got the backdrop. You look amazing.
Thank you. I got my hair did. Remember I said I was going to get my hair done last week?
I know. You didn't lie. You didn't lie.
You want to hear something so funny, though? So my hairdresser, you kind of can't dictate what your hairdresser has on the TV, right? And it took about 5 hours to execute. And so I told them I was a big fraidy cat, and they want to put on the TV show Them, which is it's terrifying.
That's an aggressive show to watch, get your hair done too, right?
Let me tell you. So as I was getting my hair done, I was like screaming when the ghost would like jump out and like jerking my hair. So I'm glad it came out okay.
And one of the writers on that is Christina Ham, who was on our show, who is the author of Nina Simone, For Women, right? So really, you were just doing research. You're working.
Doing research, right? But I got really geeked out, though, when I started seeing the credits roll. I was like, Christina Ham was on our show. So that's really exciting. We're relevant, y'all.
I know. For today. So, we're going to get to our deeply charming and amazing guest shortly, but I just want to remind everybody, we still have 2 days left of The Heath, starring John Larroquette and Lauren Gunderson playing herself. Lauren Gunderson playing Lauren Gunderson and John Larroquette playing King Lear, of course, the two roles that they were meant to play. And the people can go sign up if they want through our website, arizonatheater.org. And it's free, right? We really made this as accessible as possible. So it's free for anybody to go watch, even though, right, it's Tony Award and 4-time Emmy winner John Larroquette and Lauren Gunderson, who's the most produced playwright in the country, 2 out of the last 3 years. And it's her singing and playing banjo. And so you really don't get those two things anywhere else.
Absolutely. And always have your headphones in to enhance your listening experience. When I watched it, that was really what took it to the next level for me. Because I think right now we're all asking to be a little less visually stimulated by all the different videos that are out there right now. And so just sit back and go old school with it and hear a nice audio play was really like a nice change. And like, I don't know, John's voice is super soothing. So it was great. I thought it was wonderful.
Yeah, no, it's great. And very sweet John Larroquette, did donor events for us, did the whole thing for it, and then he made a donation, to be able to do it. Yeah, very much, the whole time has been nothing but super supportive of us and helping us to move it forward. So
you talk about how you hope when you meet your heroes that they turn out to be the people that you want them to be, or you envision them to be, and he has been just really kind and wonderful during this whole process.
Yeah, no, he's really been great. So maybe more John Larroquette in our future.
Who knows?
Yeah. Great. So let's go ahead and bring out our guest for today, which I cannot wait to talk to. So I want to introduce everybody to Vichet Chum, playwright, performer, writer, actor, advocate, dog owner, lover. He does the whole thing. So let's go ahead and bring Vichet out. Hello there.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. So I have I want to get into like some all the charm that I feel about you, because you're really one of my favorite people, and I feel like I've been lucky enough to work several times with you over the last couple of years to be able to do those things. But I just want to start out and just give some, you're a humble guy, right? So I want to make sure everybody knows how fancy you truly are. I know. So it's recently been announced, right, that you're going to be in residence at several different places. And, right, so can you tell us just a little bit about what those are and what you'll be doing coming up?
Yeah, so it was recently announced yesterday Well, actually, let me take a step back. First of all, thank you for having me. I'm so very grateful to be here. I heart Sean so very much, so I'm grateful to be in this space with him. And Chanel, I've just heard amazing things about you, so I'm glad to be in your company. Yes, so I am working on some stuff. I am on commission with Audible. And so I'm writing an entirely audio play for that format. And they've been kind enough to partner with Space on Murder Farm to give me a 2-week institutional residency at the Writer Farm up in upstate New York. And I'll just be there writing a new play. So that's the most recent thing. And then I'm doing some other things as well, but that's the most immediate newsworthy thing, I suppose.
And, we don't know exactly when theaters are coming back or exactly who is doing what, and things may be delayed. But before we had gone to the big intermission that we're in, right, Steppenwolf had announced that they were going to produce a world premiere of yours. And actually, several times, even afterwards, when they made their announcements, they always went out of their way to make sure that they listed you in there, which they did not have to do, right? So that's exciting, right? That's one of the theaters we all dream of being at.
Yeah, no, they've been so communicative, so kind through this whole process of, deferring all these productions. And right now it's promised that, my play Bald Sisters will be produced in their 22-23 season. And we're actually in conversations like right now about when that's all going to happen. So it is happening, and it's a play that I've been working on for several years. It's about the Cambodian women in my life, people who have nurtured me, who've taken care of me, who have taught me more about living than anyone else. And I'm just so excited to finally get that on a stage. I've actually never seen a play of my own on stage. I've only been in my own authored plays. So the opportunity to finally get to see my work with me removed from the experience is going to be so exciting. I think I'm just going to cry the entire time.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be so exciting to have that experience for myself.
Yeah, I like that you're starting with Steppenwolf. I feel like that's good. That's like a good low stress, just find out what it feels like, how you could go through it.
Yeah, it's so funny though, because the reason why it's happening is because the director of new play development there, Polly Hubbard, we went to college together. She was a senior when I was a freshman, and so I'm always mystified by the way in which this industry, the way our community works, where it's we were kids on a patio drinking PBR, and now we're being we're colleagues, and she is supporting me in a dramaturgical way and in the most, profound way. And so I feel very safe in that space, even though, yes, it is really terrifying because it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
So I'll get to in a second talking about how we know each other, but I just kind of want to dive into the news of the day also. And I know something that you've been very public about, right, is that we know that attacks and hate crimes against the Asian American community has been up tremendously, over 800% in New York City from this year to last year, right? And happening mostly in New York and LA. Right, where these things are happening. I know that you've been really vocal about what theaters should be doing, can be doing, have not done enough of. And I wonder if you can just share a little bit with us about what your thinking is on that.
Yeah, I mean, on so many different levels, there's so much that we can do. I mean, on a personal level, it's doing that work for yourself, doing that work as an individual, really listening, witnessing what is happening, not responding, but not responding immediately to your own feelings of the situation, but taking in what is happening right now. There have been over 3,000 anti-Asian incidents in the country that have been reported, and that doesn't mention the ones that have not been reported, right? And so I think it's really important that people do that personal internal work. And then in terms of the theater, I think that we just have to if we deeply believe in the positive, profound impact of what art and theater can do, we also have to believe in the profound negative impacts of what theater has already done. And I think about, Miss Saigon, I think about The King and I think about these narratives that have been written by non-Asian people about Asian people, and the exotification of Asian women, the erasure of Asian people on those stages, yellow face casting. And while we can say, it's just like of the moment back then, it's not as prevalent. These things are still going on, right? And they have perpetuated these narratives about these really harmful narratives about Asian people that have a connection to the way in which people view Asian bodies, Asian lives. And so we have to understand those connections. And so, I implore theater makers to really investigate, interrogate their practices about the narratives they put out into the world about Asian people and members of the people of color, people of the global majority. We have to do better in terms of what stories we are putting out there, because they are directly connected to the ways in which we perceive people, the way we treat people, the way we erase people, the way we commit violence towards people. That link between art and culture and humanity is interwoven. It's so connected, and so theaters have to do that work. We see You White American Theater, that document that they released, that's a great start. But I think also theaters have to be really specific and personal with their own communities as well. I think also, not to speak on behalf of all people of color, all artists of color, because we are not a monolith by any means. But what we are asking for is for you to be specific about your work. When you say BIPOC, as a theater, what do you mean? For me, I'm a person of color. I'm not a Black person. I'm not an Indigenous person. So the specificity of what we're asking for is really imperative, because you can't just say BIPOC a bunch and not know exactly who you're talking to, or
Right.
yeah, or who you're serving, and so, yeah, I think specifically to Asian American artists, I just say, hey, if you enjoy our culture, let us lead our own narratives. Let us program us, and let us lead, and let us envisage what that production or what that story is going to be. And Sean, I think about that experience with Merrimack when you extended your hand to me. You knew that Merrimack was in Lowell, Massachusetts, which had the second biggest Cambodian population, and you wanted to bring a Cambodian story into that space, to know that that space was also a part of their community, and you took a chance. You didn't really know me. You were just like, hey, you want to come over? And I was like, okay, sure. And the connection I have with that community now is profound. And the fact that, and this is deeply embarrassing, but the fact that my face is literally on the front of the theater, tells, that Cambodian community that this space also belongs to them. And I still get emails from that experience from people who witnessed that show, who were deeply impacted by that experience, who got to witness a Cambodian person on stage for the very first time, who got to be witnessed, in terms of in the Cambodian community, there are many survivors of the Cambodian genocide who came to see the show. And, many people email me still and say, thank you for witnessing my experience. And that is so beautiful. That is so profound. And you just can't underestimate those kind of connections, those connections that build, these profound relationships between artists and communities. I'm sorry. I should get off my soapbox.
No.
Love that. Like you made me snap. If I'm snapping, it's like, yes, I'm here for it. And I just agree with everything that you said. You know, as a person of color myself, a lot of the hurt that I've ever experienced have actually been within the walls of a theater. Like I've actually experienced more racism within something that's supposed to be a safe space than when I'm outside walking on the street, you know, being harassed by said random bystander. It's a small microaggressions. It's the not color conscious casting. It's the assuming that I can't play a certain role because of what I look like. And all that permeates deep. And so I personally took it offensively when I watch shows that do not have the accurate representation, some of the shows that you've mentioned before. And so thank you for bringing that up, that the threat is not just outside, it's within our walls and our responsibility to do something about it.
Yeah. No, thank you, Chanel. I mean, it's like we're human beings. We re-enter society after, some sort of micro or macro aggression that we've experienced in the theater. And we have to deal with that trauma for the rest of our lives, and I think we have to name that. It's traumatic what we have been through. And that's something I've really, after the horrible Atlanta shootings of those 6 Asian women and 2 other non-Asian people, I think that in witnessing that press conference by law enforcement, and witnessing someone who's in charge for the prosecution of this crime diminishing what is happening and centering the perpetrator, and automatically that feeling of being gaslit about what this was, his inability to name it as a racially motivated act. And it opened up this thing inside of me, truly. I mean, I think that I've been in fear for the last year, fear from my parents, fear from my family, because I could read the writing on the wall. We have a target on our backs right now because the former person in charge, twice impeached guy, did many things to put that target on my community's back, as he did to many other communities of color. And so I felt the anxiety of this last year on my heart, but I also, there are so many things going on. And so I felt like I didn't have a right to name it in some way. And then after that Atlanta shooting, it was like all of the stuff that I had internalized my entire life, the stuff that I had, rationalized or said, it happened because of this reason, it happened because of that reason. It all sort of came out. And I think it was a really important moment for our community because I felt like many people, AAPI people, were feeling the same feeling of like, we have to name what has happened to us. What has happened to us not only in this last year, but what has happened to us our entire lives, and the level of gaslighting to not name it as racism, to diminish it, the level of violence of what those acts are, and I feel like I'm stepping into a world in which I just don't care about being shy about what somebody has done to me, because we have to name it to fix it. And I can't bear that burden alone. I need people who have perpetrated against me to bear that burden. It is no longer my own.
Well, along those lines, you've told me this many times and I love to hear it every time. Can you just, and this will sound like a tangent, but it's right in line with this, why you decided to become a writer?
Yeah, I mean, there are many reasons why I decided to become a writer, but I was an actor primarily at the beginning of my career. I went to undergrad and graduate school to be an actor, but in grad school I was also taking playwriting and directing at the same time, because the pedagogy encouraged us to become more so theater practitioners over just like disciples of one form. And so I was really grateful for that experience. But the minute I stepped into New York and did the auditioning and did all that stuff, I realized the parameters of which people were perceiving me, the really harmful parameters. There was this one day where I had 4 auditions. It was like Mongolian sheep herder, delivery guy, valet guy, and other delivery guy. And I was like, wow, this is what people perceive of my humanity. This is what people think of me. And how, and to have to, as actors, to go into those experiences, to know what they perceive of you, to then be sort of subjected to the harshness of like the way in which people just say, you're not right, bye, you're not right, bye, you're not, I mean, to go through all of that, I was like, God, I have to expand, the opportunities for people like me. I see all of my contemporaries, my Asian contemporaries, my friends, my beloved members of my community go through similar things, and I was like, I gotta write for me and for other people, and in the same token, I am Cambodian-American, and I have one playwriting goal, and that's to write as many Cambodian characters as possible, because it's really important for me to show that the Cambodian people are not a monolith, and I think over the years, there's always been a lot of interest in Cambodian people in relationship to the Cambodian genocide, into this like portrait of tragedy, and while that is so important to our history, it was a horrible event, and it has informed so much of who I am as a human being and as an artist. And at the same time, I am both concerned with survival and how we thrive beyond survival as well. And so I am really interested in writing as many Cambodian characters as possible to show the complexity of our people, to show the myriad of our experiences, to show that we're also just like people who go on dates, hang out with our friends, do things that have nothing to do with the Cambodian genocide, though it is, deeply ingrained in our fabric as well as people.
Well, and I feel like how we did your play the first time at MRT is like a real model for how organizations can begin to bring new audiences in, right? So for people that don't know, like Lowell, right, has the second biggest Cambodian population. It's a third of the town, as far as we know, right? Because they don't always like to be counted for various reasons, right? So when I got the job, I was like, we're going to do a Cambodian play, which is like really easy to say. And then you start to be like, what is that? How do we dig into this? And so I talked to a bunch of people, and everybody pointed me to you. And then when we started talking about how to not only develop your play, you were really forward and said, I want to come to town several times that have nothing to do with my play, and I just want to get to know the community. Right, so you came several times, and we never met anybody in the theater. We always went out into the community, right? We found the local Cambodian newspaper. We met with them. They were delighted, right? They came and reviewed the show in Khmer, which is amazing, right? But it was you really put in the work in advance, which shouldn't be on you, right? Theaters should have to do that on their own, but you really went out of your way to be like, I don't want first rehearsal to be when I meet this community if you're really genuine about bringing them in. And so you did all this extra work in terms of coming to town, meeting with them. They knew you as a person. They really invested in you. So by first rehearsal, it was just like, oh, our friend Vichet has a show. Let's go over and see what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so glad you brought that up because, I'm so keenly aware of like theaters, regionally in New York, LA, or whatever, who program, the BIPOC show, and then all of a sudden their marketing materials look a certain way, and you're like, wait a minute, and it feels like this con to get communities into your seats only for specific shows, as if communities of color, people of color can't respond or connect to the humanity of whatever show you're programming, right? And so it shows a very narrow perspective of your communities and also like what you're capable of doing, you know? And so for me, it's like, I'm a stranger to Lowell, Massachusetts. I don't live in Lowell, Massachusetts. So the first step should be to building that relationship, to getting to know those people and to getting to know what they give a shit about, to really like making sure that I have meals with them. I mean, as a Cambodian, that's like the most important thing, to like have meals with your aunties and your uncles and your cousins, you know? So like now it's like when I go back to Lowell, I comfortably can go back to Lowell and it have nothing to do with Merrimack. Right. You know, to me, it's like, because I have friends there, you know, I have family there now. And I think that that's the kind of relationships we have to be thinking about in terms of the theater. If we think that theaters are a cultural, important component of our, community, of our society, then we have to believe in extending our arms. Post-COVID, we have to be able to really get to know people for who they are, and we have to go to them. We can't just be like, come into our stuffy theater and we'll close the doors and then you'll have an experience for 2 hours in the dark. Like, that can't be the thing, right? Like, you have to invest in those relationships. That's how you build communities.
Well, and then, what we did afterwards, right, was like, even after your show closed, it was a big hit, like, then you were in another show, Christmas at Pemberley, which has nothing to do with the Cambodian genocide, just for being a great actor, right? Just for being like a truly charming, debonair gentleman. And I feel like that was a great way to be like, no, we're invested in you, right? And you as a performer, not just when it suits the certain narrative.
Absolutely. And, honestly, like there were some Cambodian people who came to see that show and they were tickled. They were delighted that I was like running around in tight pants and speaking in the worst, like, English Regency accent that I could muster. And I was showing, a different side of my artistry to them as well, and they were delighted to see, me share a narrative that is so different than the one that I was putting out there in the first place. So,
yeah, and that you have range, right? And that you have other interests, to your point. And that's what we're supportive of you as an artist.
Yeah, and that I have training, that I have the expertise in that space, right? I think that was the running joke in grad school. I would do all these, like, I would study RP, I would study Irish, I would study my Southern dialect, and like nobody's going to cast me in those parts. Like no one will, except Sean Daniels. You know what I mean? So I think that's expanding right now. I mean, you were mentioning Lauren Gunderson, like her plays have been such, spaces for really challenging people's notion of like history. And so that's exciting. It's really, really exciting.
All right, can you just dive a little bit more into what Bald Sisters is about? Because I love this show so much, right? And it's gonna happen at some point, and then we're all gonna do it. So how can you give us just like a little bit of a preview of what's in for the rest of us in the like 24-25 season?
Yeah, so Bald Sisters is about 3 Cambodian women, the matriarch and her 2 adult daughters. The matriarch has recently passed away, and the older sister has been living with the matriarch for some time and has sort of watched her mother decline in her health, and has really occupied that older sibling space of just like taking care of her mother. And the younger daughter, the younger sister, has been away in New York and is a photographer and is a bit of a mess, and somebody who's really struggled with understanding her place in this family. It should also be said that the mother and the older daughter are survivors of the Cambodian genocide. The mother, when she was a woman, and adult woman, and the older daughter when she was a young girl. And the matriarch had the younger daughter in the refugee camps in Thailand. So the younger daughter really does have such a different point of reference and experience in her relationship to the Cambodian genocide and to that legacy of tragedy and survival. And so that's a part of that tension, that fraction between the two sisters, because they've lived such different lives. Anyway, so the mother has passed, and now the younger daughter has descended on their home, and they have to decide what to do with her body. And in Theravada Buddhist tradition, the mother, someone who has passed, would be cremated, and the older sibling would shave their head and go into the monkhood. And so at the same time, sorry, the plot's a little complicated, but at the same time, the older sister has been diagnosed with breast cancer, and so she's actually going through that as well, unbeknownst to the younger sister, because she's been away. And so the younger sister comes home, discovers that her sister is going through cancer, going through chemo treatment, and has been unable to communicate with her mother before she's passed, and has shaved her head because she has made the decision to take on the mantle of that older sibling responsibility of shaving her head and going into the monkhood. I mean, as a gesture. And so the younger sister is like, we got to cremate her. And the older sister is like, I'm not doing that. We're going to bury her. And so it's sort of about this tension of worldviews and this collision of these two women who love their mother dearly, but are having to reckon with their relationship and their relationship with their mother who has passed. And yeah, it sounds like kind of sad, but it's actually kind of funny. And it's all about like family dynamics and, how I remember as a young person, my mother always said to me and my brother, who's older than me, that the only person you'll have for the rest of your life is your brother. And that I've deeply internalized that. And my brother and I fight all the time. And so in sort of examining this relationship between the two sisters, I'm really exploring that tension of two people who have come from the same place, that same space of nurturing, but are entirely different humans with entirely different worldviews, and are trying to love each other when it comes down to it, just trying to love each other in the context of really difficult circumstances.
And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful play. I tried to program it, and then when I was in Lowell, and then Steppenwolf was like, I don't even know who this is. We're going to do it. And it was like, all right, fine. Okay. What's it like when you find out that Steppenwolf is going to do your show?
I mean, you cry when they want to do a workshop. And then you cry more when they tell you that you want to do this show. And yeah, I mean, it's incredible. When I was in college, I saw Pillowman at Steppenwolf. So I was, I was like 20 years old, and I was seeing, oh my God, I'm forgetting his name. Shannon. What's his name? Shannon? That guy? Nope. Okay, never mind. Famous actor guy, in Pillowman, and seeing this production of these people just like Michael Shannon, thank you, Will Rogers. Michael Shannon in Pillowman, and I, as a eager acting student, I was like, oh, this is acting, this is theater. They're like yelling on each other and they're spitting at each other, and this is beautiful. And so it's always been a place that I've admired for its guts, for its programming of shows that are about like how complicated it is to love one another, and its programming of like family dynamics and American families, and then to think about this play and this story, which to me is a very American story. It is a deeply Cambodian-American story. To just visualize it in that space, I mean, I think I'm just going to be a puddle I don't even know how I'll be able to be, you know, I don't know how I'll be able to make any decisions. I'm just going to be like, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for this. So.
Well, and especially right after being delayed, right, for 2 years, because everything's delayed for 2 years, right? Like the anticipation is even that much more.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think I'm sure you all have been having these conversations, but it's been hard. It's been really challenging, and to be to have what we do taken away from us, the way in which we express ourselves, the way in which we relate to one another, the way in which we, make our contribution to the world. It's been so challenging. And, I've just told myself, there are so many more important things that are happening in the world. You'll have your moment, you'll have your opportunity. But I also think, it's important to recognize that loss, to really say, man, we've been through a lot this last year, and the loss of work and the loss of employment for our community is really has been really tragic. And I feel the vibrations in me right now. I got my second shot this last week, so I'm feeling the hope. I'm really feeling the energy that we're pushing forward and envisaging, the theater that we want to go back to.
So to talk a little bit about that, though, and you brought up early the We See White American Theater document and kind of like this call that we just all need to do better, right? And so after the pandemic is over, like, what do the seasons look like? I mean, I know that we are all making commitments to, no more all white production teams and things like that. But like, what would you like to see, both on the creative side and as a performer, to be a real change that you see within the industry?
Oh my gosh. I mean, how much time do you have?
I know.
I mean, I think it's all... I think we have to be really intentional about our language. I think that, like, I'm already hearing people say things like, we're going to go back to the way it was, and I don't want to go back to the way it was. That's not something I want to do, because I think before, we were constantly sacrificing and making compromises for fear of retribution, or fear of being called out, or the fear of, like, doors closing on us, and I don't want to be in that mindset of fear anymore. We can't do that. In terms of what I want theaters to do, I mean, I don't know. It's it's really hard, because I saw, theaters release all of those statements, particularly last summer after George Floyd's murder, and there was a part of me that was like, I'm grateful that you're saying something, but there's a part of me that also feels like, oh, this feels generic and also, like, unspecific, and how is that attached to your own work? And so I just want us all to be so much more intentional and so much more specific. I want us to not jump to results all the time. I want us to be in the process of having conversations that are really difficult. Yes, I want theaters to program as many different voices as possible, but I also don't want it to be because you're filling a quota, some sort of arbitrary quota that you've created for yourself that's giving you a pat on the back to say, look, we did this thing. It's more so of like, how does that affect your own personal humanity? Are you programming this thing because you deeply believe in this thing and you deeply want to understand more about this community? Then yes, do that. You know what I mean? But I think it's all about, like, this dissonance between optics and, like, the actual intention of the thing. And so, yeah, I mean, let's program more shows. Let's develop more shows. If you're an artistic director of a theater for 20 years, get out of there, like, move on. You still can change and evolve and grow into another institution. Like, boards have to change, artistic boards of theaters and new play development organizations, they have to diversify. even more, and not even just diversify, but also like be a space of real inclusion and real access. Because I'm on a board of a new play a new play organization, and I am one of two people of color on that board, and I think that I don't want other people of color to feel the way that I feel at times. You know what I mean? Like, and that really is a space in which decisions are made. And so, we've got to figure out the board situation. And, I think also artistic leaders can just keep listening to their community and to their artists. Artists are artists and theater practitioners, designers, crew. I think we have to have a space in which like there is a feedback loop where we are really communicating about what is happening in our spaces versus just trying to hit our marks. I think that for a long time people were just like programming, producing, and then it's just like this continuum of production that doesn't have intentionality to it. I think we've got to have conversations. We've got to create a space in which we can really talk about what happened and how we can make things better. Blah, 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 blah.
No, I love it. Thank you for that. You spoke straight to my heart, because I hope for the same things. I've been on boards where I've been the only one. I mean, I get it completely. And so it's important for us to start making that shift. I will keep this person anonymous, but I run a diversity organization for theater, and I had a local member contact me and share a letter that they want to share with another institution to say, hey, it's been 7 months, and that statement that you put out, you're not abiding by that statement. And I was just so proud of that young person, and proud that they took the initiative, proud that they saw, something in me to want to run it by me first to make sure that they're in pocket. But the bravery that it's taking people, and I'm not saying for us to do the emotional lifting, because the time for that is done. But the bravery that it took for this person to go to this institution and then challenge it, but in love. I read the letter. It was eloquent and beautiful, but challenged in love. And there's been really, really great feedback since. And so I just want to encourage everybody off of your beautiful words that the time is now. We can all make a difference. We can call people out in love and then say like, hey, let me help you get here. Or if I don't want to do that emotional lifting, let me at least help you name it. That way you can do the work on yourself, and then that can influence our community. So thank you. You're like speaking to my heart so much. I've been snapping. I snapped so much with you.
Oh my gosh. And I love what you just said, because, accountability doesn't have to be scary. Like, can we remove some of that fear? And then also like the fact that a young person had the audacity and bravery to write that letter. It's like, look to our young people, man. They don't give a shit about the status quo. I'm cursing so much. I'm so sorry. But they don't care about the status quo. They are encouraged and motivated by creating the world that they want to live in. And I think we all have to be braver to do that.
Well, I mean, I think why I love having you on this show, and us even having this platform, right, allows us to begin to amplify this conversation and these voices in a way that I think, when theaters only get 6 plays a year, it's so small in terms of the amount of conversations that you can have, right? So just to be able to say, like, every Friday we're going to bring artists on that we love and respect and want them to talk about, it just gives us more avenues, right? Because otherwise it's like 6 shows and 3 of them have to sell a certain amount of money. So really you have 3 shows to be able to have community conversations. And it just feels inadequate. It feels like as theater makers, we're not, months go by when we're not talking in this way to our audience. So that's why I'm so grateful for this and for people like you that want to come on here and have this conversation.
Yeah, I just feel like we have to like unlearn that theater is just like a space in which people sit in the dark and watch a show. We are we can be community spaces, and if anything that we've learned from the pandemic is that we are malleable, facile artistic humans. We can like be flexible to the needs of our community. So, I mean, kudos and props to you and Arizona Theater Company for having this platform for this conversation.
So before we go, can I change subjects to something ridiculous that you taught me about in the last like 2 months? Can you just talk a little bit about Bosa donuts or donuts in general?
Yeah.
Because this is what, so we eat a lot of Bosa donuts here, right? And then we're like who is Mr. Bosa, whatever, and suddenly we went down this rabbit hole of like Bosa Donuts in Arizona is a Cambodian run donut shop. And so we texted you and you were like, you don't even know what you're talking about. Like donuts in America are all Cambodian run. Like there is a deep relationship between the Cambodian people and donuts. Can you just say a little bit more about this? Because we went down like a rabbit hole for weeks trying to figure this out with you. Yeah.
It's so funny because my uncle owned a couple of donut shops in California, in Long Beach. And because, donut shops, Cambodians have have a very tight relationship with donut shops. And if you go to California, if you go to Southern California, I mean, all of the donut shops are owned by Cambodian people. And so when you texted me about Bosa Donuts, I was like, probably it's a Cambodian person. If it's not like Dunkin' Donuts or if it's not Krispy Kremes, it's probably a Cambodian person. Yeah. And there's actually a documentary called The Donut King that I think was recently released about one of the major Cambodian donut tycoons and his very complicated history. One day I will write this into a play. But his very complicated history, being an immigrant, a survivor of the genocide, and creating this like incredible tycoon or incredible legacy, this string of donut shops, and then like his sort of downfall because he had a sort of sordid history. So yeah, I smell a play in there. There's a play in there.
Yeah,
Can it be sensory related too, though? Can there be actual baking of the donuts during the show so we can?
Yeah, donuts all day long. I mean, I'm hungry for a donut now, currently.
Yeah. No, it's one of those things like in Arizona, if you had asked people, they may not have thought that like the majority of donuts run through this state are Cambodian, but they are. They totally are.
Yeah. It's exciting. So when I come to Arizona, the
first
place we will convene is Bosa Donuts.
No, you totally were because we're there all the time.
Literally, I have one in walking distance of my house.
Amazing.
Well, every Hang in Focus, whenever we have a wonderful guest on, such as yourself, we like to ask them a single word that embodies the moment of now, what you're kind of thinking about, what's going on in the world, about your work, about anything, about the pandemic. And so I just want to give you a moment to let that sit with you. And what word would you like to share with us today?
This is hard, y'all.
It's harder for playwrights because they're like, because like words are so specific. When we have actors on, they're like, they got words. They're ready to go. Yeah.
That's so true. I like it when you take your time because I'm like, oh yeah, it's going to be good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as you were speaking, I feel like I should just share the word that came to my mind when you presented the prompt, which is fragile.
Great. And why? What came to mind with that?
Because I think we're in a fragile place right now. I have been grieving the murders of Black and brown boys this week.
Yeah.
And I've been grieving the crimes against my API community and my deep fear that I'm constantly worried about my parents, and I watch American politics and it's hard to watch, and I see what's happening in our industry and are sort of envisaging like stepping out of this pandemic, and it all feels very fragile right now. And it's a moment in which we can be better or we cannot be better. And I implore people to, as we are in this fragile space where we can be vulnerable to one another, like that's okay. Like we can show our fears, and we can also be better. I just want us to be better. I just want us to all be better.
You know what that makes me think about, and this happened right in LA recently. Do you remember? Of course you remember, but like your show happened, and then we were nominated for some Boston Critics Awards, and so we went to the event. The event was a hot mess. The local community released a letter saying like this organization is racist and it needs to step up. And so the Boston Critics Association decided to end their organization after some 35 years, as opposed to do anything to be able to do it, right? And the same thing happened to out in LA, right, with the East West Players, right? Like a service organization of 40 years got called out, and so they closed to be able to do it, right? And it's this moment where it's like, really, that's the choice that people would make. They feel like in this moment they would rather just stop altogether than to be able to do any work going forward. And so that blows my mind in terms of both of those organizations closing down rather than just even starting to figure out how they can be better. Right.
But it also, in that choice, it sort of highlights who they are and what the organization is about in a lot of ways. And, yeah, to me, it's like, I hope that they're doing their own personal work. I mean, I really hope, because I think when it comes down to it, we think about our imprint on the world and our legacy and society. It's like, it's you, like we have so many choices that we can make within a day, and we can choose to be better, or we can choose to learn, we can choose to evolve, or we can choose to stay precious and unwilling to look at people for their humanity. And that's why it feels so fragile, because I think I see people not choosing to be better, and then I also see people choosing to be better as well.
Oh. It's always a joy to have you on. I could listen to you talk for hours and hours. You're one of my favorite people that I've met in the last couple of years, and so thank you so much for doing this.
I'm so grateful to both of you. Thank you so much for having me. It's been so fun. I wish I was just hanging out with you in person.
You will at some point. When I got the job, I was like, come on out. And then about 8 months later, I was like, don't come out.
Don't. There's a thing.
There's a thing, and you can't come here. And yeah, but eventually we'll get to that, and we'll have you out here. We would love that.
I would love that. You are a joy. And thank you for all that you do for the community, like truly, and for what you do for your community specifically, and the stories that you're telling. This is the work. And thank you for that.
Thanks, Janelle. You're such a light, and I love your shirt. Yellow.
I know, right? I know.
I love your hair. I was like, I've been living your hair this whole time.
Thank you.
Just shake it out. Make a Facebook profile.
Woo! My partner does not love it so much. So.
Well, because we're both with Germans. Like my wife, eventually, the reason I have a haircut, she was like, "I'm scheduling a haircut for you. We're doing this." There are people serious about their rules. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and he's asked me multiple times if he can cut it himself. So yeah, I wouldn't put it past him for sure.
Excellent. All right, thank you so much, Chanel. Do you want to throw it to the call board for next week?
Yes, I am. We're so grateful for everyone for joining us. Don't forget, the Heath closes on Sunday at 5 o'clock. So you want to make sure you check it out. You can go to our website. You can click on it. The call board will actually show you how to do so. So you have no excuses. Check it out. It's going to be amazing. And our great producer, Will, has done a really great job with the call board. So let's send it on over to him. Until next time.
Thank you all so much.
This is your call board for April 16th to the 22nd, 2021. Hi, I'm Will Rogers, Community Engagement Manager at Arizona Theater Company. Thanks for joining us today. We hope you caught today's episode where Sean and Chanel sat down with Vichet Chum, playwright and actor, and all-around great guy. Hope you check it out. Well, we didn't hear from development last week, so we're going to head right on over to the Giving Corner and see what they have for us today. Development, take it away.
Hi, everybody. It's Paula Taylor, your Chief Development Officer here at Arizona Theater Company. Today, I wanted to take a moment to highlight someone who's been a real advocate for arts organizations and artists in Arizona. That would be Jamie Dempsey. She's been the executive director for Arizona Commission on the Arts for many years, and they just recently announced that she'll be leaving to join the Arizona Community Foundation in a new role, the VP of Philanthropic Initiatives. We're very excited to know that Jamie's going to continue her good work in helping support Arizona artists and arts organizations. And it's people like Jamie that help us continue to be a strong, informed arts organization. I also want to thank so many of you who have renewed your donations to Arizona Theater Company. You know, we just did a deep dive and we're actually ahead of schedule. For a year where our doors have been closed, this is huge for us. Now, you may remember that Jamie was also featured on our Hang in Focus episode last year. So if you want to visit our website, we have those listed. You can learn more about her there. But again, I want to thank Jamie. I want to thank so many of you. And I want to wish you a wonderful weekend. And we'll talk to you next week. Take care.
If you haven't caught The Heath yet, our latest digital offering, it's an audio play starring John Larroquette and the playwright herself, Lauren Gunderson. So please check that out. Head on over to our website. You can get all of the information. So we really hope you catch our upcoming offering of The Heath through April 18th, to be more precise. So there's still time to check all that out. We recommend you get a good pair of headphones and listen to it. That way it'll sound phenomenal. And because this is our first audio play, we thought we'd walk you through a few of the steps to get to access this amazing recording. First, just go to our website, real easy, Arizona Theater. That's theater, theatre.org, arizonatheater.org. And from right there, you will see a beautiful scrolling image, or scroll past it till you see the large picture of John Larroquette. And you just click on that right there here on what we call our show page. Get all the 411 before you listen to the audio play. When you're ready, click on this large button right here too, as it reads, sign up to listen to The Heath. It's important to us to know how many people we are serving when we bring this kind of work to Arizona, and this helps us do that. So we really appreciate you helping us and help keep the arts going in our fair state. Now let's find out what's happening in theaters around Arizona. In Tucson, Shakespeare seems to be alive and well. It's a Shakespeare doubleheader where Pima Theater is bringing us Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet in less than 30 minutes. Directed by Chris Will, April 23rd through 25th. It's free, but donations are accepted. And the Rogue Theater has Shakespeare's As You Like It, directed by Cynthia Meyer, April 22nd through May 2nd, live or streaming, and featuring ATC's very own Carly Elizabeth Preston. So don't miss that. Now headed up to Phoenix. Shout the Mod Musical, still through the 18th, so you have a few more days to catch that if you'd like. And ASU Gamage is bringing you Design Space, a new drive-through sensory experience created by Light Switch through April 22nd. I did that the other weekend. It's a lot of fun. It's a really cool experience, so I highly suggest you go check that out. Well, that's all we have for you today. But as always, if you enjoyed the conversation, please tell a friend, share it with them, send them the link. Subscribe to our feed, like us, ring the bell, do all the things you know that you can do to help us keep these conversations coming at you every Friday at 4 o'clock. That's when Hang in Focus is. Don't miss it.